Tom Foster at Foster Web Marketing here for our February webinar that is all about how to learn your learn to love your website again. And with me here, as always, is Danielle, and we have Gretchen upright. Hi, Gretchen. Gretchen's not always on a webinar, so this is a special treat we have with Gretchen.
Hey, Tom. How are you?
And we have Jamie Kelly, who's one of our very smart web analysts, and we're going to just go down our list of things that you need to do to love your website again, to make it work for you, because the only way for it to work for you is if you give it some love and some attention, like anything in life. And so Danielle has put together a great presentation on how to do this. Just some housekeeping stuff. We are recording this. We will provide the recorded version of the webinar out in the next few days. We also will provide the slides that we're using. If you have any questions, if you could just put them in that little question box on the right side in your webinar panel, then we'll get to them at some point during the webinar here. So without further ado, Danielle, Gretchen, and Jamie, tell us how to love our websites again.
All right, thank you, Tom. This is Danielle. We're going to go ahead and get started. So what are you going to learn today about loving your website? First, what we're going to do is give you a refresher on the Foster Web Marketing 10 Marketing Commandments. For those of you who have been following us, you know that last year we put together a list of all the things that we believe are important in order to market your law firm or your doctor's practice or your small business. So we're going to go over those quickly. And this webinar is actually based on commandment number 2, thou shalt update your website regularly. So we're going to talk about what that means. And last month in January we did commandment number 1, which was all about having a plan, a strategy, and goals set for your business. And you can review that if necessary. And the third thing we're going to talk about is in more detail which pages on your website need to be updated regularly and why, and what exactly you should do with them. So we've got lots of examples, and we've got Gretchen here, who is our usability expert, and we also have Jamie, who is going to tell us what an SEO wants to see on your website.
And I just want to throw in a little thought here, is that everybody knows that has been listening to us for a long time. We're always talking about content is king, and that's what Google wants, and that is still true. Content is important. That's going to be a lot of what we're going to be talking about, is content and how your content is positioned. The change is that it's not too much of a change, but now Google's actually penalizing people for not having good quality content based on what their service or what they're offering. And so a big part of content is king now is making sure that it's really good. It's not just about throwing up, 100 blog posts a day or whatever. We found that over the last year, we've really had to put some distinction on that about what does content mean, what does updating your website mean nowadays. The good news is that you don't really have to update it with the volume and the frequency that you had to in the past, but you have to. The other side of it is that you have to do it better. So you have to really pay attention to how you're adding your content, to how it's being written, and that's really what that's what we're calling love your website again, is fall in love with how you're doing content for your website. So go ahead, Danielle. I just wanted to kind of talk about that real quick.
Alrighty, so here are the 10 marketing commandments, and I just want to go over these quickly to put things in perspective. The first one, like we said, was the very first thing you need to do for your business is have an overall vision, have goals for your business, and have a strategy to achieve those goals. And like I said, this was the subject of our webinar last month in January. This month we're talking about updating your website regularly, and we'll talk about what that means today. And next month, we're going to hit point number 3 in detail, which is thou shalt optimize local search and niche directories. And we just sent a team out to Seattle to attend a Local Up event, which was a collection of local search marketing professionals sharing the latest and greatest information. So this is perfect timing for this webinar. That'll be March 17th on St. Patrick's Day. And the following points, number 4, having a sustainable review strategy. Of course, creating and promoting excellent content, which is a little different than what we're talking about today. And community involvement, social media, nurturing your herd with follow-up campaigns, print and email, embracing public relations and courting the media, and finally, respectful use of paid advertising. All right, so let's get started on this number 2, updating your website regularly. And I included this slide here just as a reminder to everybody that your website is really the nexus of all of your marketing activities. So no matter what kind of marketing you're doing, whether you're a referral-based practice, whether you rely on community sponsorships, whether you do a lot of emails or radio ads or print ads, people are going to go online to look for information about you. So you want to have an awesome website that welcomes all of these visitors because people will find you online. So no matter what kind of advertising you do, you've got to pay attention to your website, and that's going to be what we talk about today. And Tom, this is one of our favorite points, isn't it? Your one true website?
Yeah, I mean, this is your website, as Steve was just saying, your website is where everything flows, and it is where what allows you to measure what's working, what's not working. It also allows you to change quickly. It allows you to do some split testing on landing pages. But, I mean, you don't want to confuse people. And it's really, it's even beyond just your website as your brand. But yes, of course, you only have one website to land them on. That website could have different looking pages on it, but the brand should be consistent. You could use different URLs, you can use different phone numbers to send them there. But if your billboard, if that's what you're doing, or your television ad, or even your advertising in Yellow Pages, or your pay-per-click ad, whatever the color, whatever the brand, whatever the logo, that should be consistent throughout. Otherwise, people get confused. If Domino's Pizza or Papa John's had a different logo every time, or a different, spokesperson, there would be brand confusion. There's a reason why that, Papa John wears that red shirt and has that look and does that same thing. He says that same thing over and over again, better ingredients, better pizza. That's for brand consistency and awareness, because as consumers, which is what you're marketing to, consumers are blown away every day by marketing messages. And so they can get easily confused. You think, like, duh, why wouldn't they, understand? But think about your own habits. So that's 100% right, is that it's your one brand of marketing, all focused to funnel into one website. The days of creating multiple satellite sites are over, and that's a blessing. That's less that we have to stay on top of. But that means that we just have to focus our energy into creating the very best brand, the very best website that we possibly can. And it's not a one-time event. That's the point of this call, or this webinar, is how to improve, and that's what you're always going to be doing.
Right, that's really the point we want to make here, is we get asked a lot if people should have separate websites for different practice areas or different types of clients, and our recommendation as a marketing company experienced in this is one website. And there are strategies for handling different types of situations, and that's not the subject here, but our advice is always going to be have one website. All right, when we tell you that we want you to update your website regularly, what do we mean? So what we're saying here is that we want to make sure that you sit down and set some time aside and look at your site every quarter or every 6 months. So make sure you do this on a routine basis. Don't just set up your website and walk away. And the other time you can do it is if something changes. So let's say you add a new partner or add a key employee to your business. Perhaps you've opened a new office location or changed offices, moved offices. Let's say you get some new awards or some new recognition. Or you start working or partnering with different companies or different charities, or you have some new ads running. You're working with a new advertising partner, you might want to sit down and look at your website and make sure that the ad and the website complement each other. Or if you get new media attention, this is something we'll talk about as well. How can you make your website work for you in that situation?
And Danielle, I would like to point out here, when we say updating your website regularly, this goes beyond just content creation and adding content to the site, which obviously should be done much more than every quarter or every 6 months. But we want to use this quarterly or semi-annually. You take a step back from just the content creation and really reevaluate everything, make sure that the content you are publishing is in line with your overall goals, your overall strategy for the firm, and that everything is still meshing together as well as you're hoping that it is.
That's a perfect point, Jamie. I think a better title for the slide would be, what do we mean by auditing your website regularly? Because as we pointed out earlier, one of the 10 Commandments is adding and promoting content, but we're not talking about that today. We're actually talking about taking a look at your website, making changes to the content, but also the design as well.
Yeah, it's
All
just
right.
to kind of like, is this still doing what we want it to do? I mean, is this really, is this catering to, is this speaking like we want our website, our brand to speak to the world? That's really it. And we do it all the time. I mean, how many iterations of our website have we had over the years? Good Lord. I mean, and we, you know, Gretchen, how many times have we changed the website?
I'd say once a year at least.
Yeah. So, and we pay attention, and we, you know, look what's working, what's not working, why it's working, why it's not working, da-da-da-da-da-da. So, and we just improve it. Sometimes, and the other thing too, and sorry, I'm taking a little bit off track, but it's not about traffic. We just had a call a little while ago that Jamie and I were on, which we see like noticeable improvements in traffic, but the issue was that they're not noticeable improvement in the kind of traffic that we're actually after. So that's the other thing too, is like, don't just look at things from face value. Oh wow, I'm getting more, you know, visits or more sessions every month. Well, where are they coming from? You know, are they coming from where you want them to come from? Are all the contacts that you're getting to your website, are they coming from the right place? Are they cases that you can actually take? If they're not, if you're getting increase in traffic and you're getting cases or you're getting leads or contacts from people that you don't want, then you have to audit your website because you're attracting the wrong people. That's what's happening there. That stuff is easy to fix, but you just have to know to fix it.
That's a great point, Tom, and I think it also highlights the importance of our first step in this process, which is having a strategy. First of all, you have to know what kind of clients or patients you're trying to attract to your website, and then you can sit down and look at your website and make sure that the design and the content appeals to that type of patient or that client. All right, so we've told you that you need to audit your website. Now, which pages do we mean when we talk about this? Well, there's a few different types of pages. First of all, we want you to take a look at your navigation bar. And we have some background noise. Okay. So we wanted you to take a look at your navigation bar because this is the information that you're putting first and foremost up in front of people. So if you have a link on your nav bar, people are likely going to click it and explore it. Of course, you can see this in Google Analytics, but a really easy way to do your audit is to take a look at each of those pages on your nav bar and ask yourself, does this page really need to be linked from my nav bar? Is there anything I'm missing? Could I simplify? So what I've done here is included some examples of nav bars. You can go look at your own website and see what you have.
Yeah, the nav bar, the navigation bar, Danielle, is going to be, you know, basically a semi-universal design element, right? Anybody who's used any website before knows that they can expect to see some sort of navigation element, probably at the top of every page that they go to. Because it's so universal, you can take advantage of that. You know, put your most prominent information, put the information that does the best job of selling you as a business, and make it available there in the navigation. If that's going to be your best bet at capturing a new patient, a new client, whatever new business you're trying to bring in, that needs to be readily available to people in the place where they can find it most easily, or where it's also going to highlight you as a business most prominently.
Exactly. All right, another thing to audit would be your top organic landing pages, and we've included some screenshots here. So if you go into Google Analytics, there's the steps, the buttons you need to click, and the links you need to click in order to see your top organic pages. And Jamie, why is this important?
Well, because these top organic landing pages are going to be the pages that are actually being found by people on your site most often, not necessarily the pages you would like them to find most often, but the pages that are actually being served up to people when they do a search that yields a result that includes your website. So you want to make sure that these people are finding these pages whether you want them to or not, and you want to make sure that the overall goal, the overall message that you're projecting as a business is reflected accurately on these pages that people are finding already without you having to take any extra effort to get them there. These are almost always there's going to be some overlap with the pages on your top navigation that we just talked about, simply because those pages are generally the most popular pages on your site. I could guess, without taking a look at any one particular site of any of our clients, that their top 5 organic landing pages are probably going to include their home page, their contact us page, a bio page of whomever the doctor or attorney is most closely associated with that firm, and maybe a handful of other content pieces, whether it be a practice area page or 1 or 2 particularly popular articles that they've written. Those are great places to start, and you will see overlap between your navigation bar as a starting point and the organic landing pages, but use the organic pages in particular as a way to put yourself in the shoes of the viewer. This is what somebody sees having no other information about your site or your practice. Is what they're seeing when they arrive on these pages the message that you're actually wanting to show them? And if not, there's a perfect opportunity to adjust that.
And you may be surprised by which pages are coming up top for you in organic search, and that can be a real indication of something on your site not quite working right if you're seeing pages that you didn't think you necessarily would be ranking well for. So it's also a good thing to keep an eye on a regular basis. This exercise will force you to do that.
Mm-hmm. One other important thing to point out, too, is when you're in analytics, if you're following along with the steps Danielle laid out here in these screenshots, it's important to know that analytics will default to a 30-day window when you first log in, which can be a great place to start looking at your analytics. But if you're really trying to determine which pages on your site are most popular organic landing pages long-term, you probably want to be looking at a larger date range than just the past 30 days. Take a look at the past 6 months or the past year even, and really see which pages have been the most popular over the longer term. Those are the ones that are going to be your best opportunities to hit first.
Very
That
good
is a
point.
great point. Great point, Jamie.
Yeah, and if you're doing a quarterly audit, you can always take a look at each quarter to see how they compare to your previous audits, or if you do 6 months, same thing. You can actually compare the time periods to see how effective your changes have been. All right. So which pages do we want you to audit? Here's a few more. Your promoted pages. So if you're doing any kind of pay-per-click landing pages, if you have books or reports that you're driving people to, if you are sending out drip campaigns or email follow-up campaigns to your herd, your email herd, you'll want to take a look at those. Or if you have any offline ads that are sending people to a certain page on your website, anywhere that you're directing marketing traffic and driving people to, you want to include this in your regular audit of your website.
Yeah, the counterpoint to the organic pages, which were pages people are finding without your help. These promoted pages, whether they be through pay-per-click or any other means of promotion, are the pages that you're actively pushing people towards, and it's even more important from that perspective to make sure that the messaging is consistent. It's not uncommon for seasonal changes to affect which pay-per-click areas you're targeting, which books or reports you may be promoting, from one time of the year to the other. You want to make sure that all of that information is reevaluated on a recurring basis so that you're just presenting consistent messaging across all of these different channels.
It's a very good point to think about things from a seasonal perspective. I know that for motorcycle accident attorneys, for example, they'll see much more traffic in the spring and summer than you would in the winter, of course. So that's going to change your top landing pages and which pages are most important on your site. And as you're looking at your pages, and we hit on this a little bit earlier, but what are you looking for when you audit each of these pages? And a very important item is your brand consistency. And you'd be surprised how many times we see businesses make this error where they put out an awesome TV ad or a print ad that they're driving people back to their website, but the design company or the ad company they've hired to do the ad kind of takes a different direction and does their own thing. So when people come back to your website, there's no consistency. Maybe the logo looks a little different. Maybe they used a different color scheme. Maybe the messaging in your other ads doesn't match what's on the website. So as you go through your site, make sure that those landing pages are all consistent with your overall brand? Are you using similar colors and logos and taglines? And when you talk about your business, are you talking about it in the same way, consistent throughout your website and then consistent throughout all your marketing?
Yeah, and we don't want the takeaway here to be that everything should be identical to the point that it becomes boring, but you need to know the rules before you can break the rules. If you want to try something different with new colors in a new television ad or billboard ad or something, make sure everything else is consistent. So even if people at first glance notice the discrepancy between the colors on your billboard and your website, they're reassured by familiar taglines, familiar logos, familiar branding everywhere else that they have actually found the right place that they were looking for in the first place. You can experiment within these constraints a little bit, but you can't change too many things at once without running the risk of scaring people away or turning them off.
What else
Well,
can you look for?
this is really important. Sorry, Dee, but this is really important, what we were talking about before about the brand consistency. You know, if you're doing, could you just go back to that previous slide? Thank you. And just, you know, if you're doing, once again, if you're doing outside, you know, marketing, whether it's TV, commercials, billboards, print, make sure that when you're driving people to your website that there's some reference, some link to that visual. What we've done for some of our clients is we'll actually put the commercial that they saw, or at least a screenshot of the television commercial on the website, so that they're like, oh yeah, this is what I saw on TV. They make that connection. If they don't see that, there's a likelihood that you're going to lose some percentage of that traffic. So that's why that brand consistency is so important. And so where you fall into trouble is if you're using lots of different resources, if you're using different agencies to help you do your marketing. If this agency is doing pay-per-click, and they're not talking to, you know, the agency that's doing your design, or if somebody's doing your media buying and your commercials and they're not talking to the landing page person that's doing your design. So you have to make sure that everyone is working together like a team. Everybody's got a job, but the team's got to function together with one goal.
Excellent points, Tom. And there's a few other things we want you to look for. As you're looking at each individual page, whether it be your home page, whether it be your pay-per-click landing page, whether it be a practice area page, is it clear what you're asking the person on that page to do? For example, you could be expecting them to fill out a form. Let's say this is a page where you have a free book available. You want to drive people to fill out the form. Are you actually explicitly asking them to do that? You'd be surprised how confused people can get on websites. Make sure it's very clear what you want them to do. And Gretchen, this is kind of a usability topic, so why don't you give us some other examples of clear calls to action?
Exactly. Excuse me. Depending on what your business is, whether you are an attorney or a doctor, you do have different items that you want people to do. For the doctors, you want them to make an appointment or call the office. So that's where you get to make the appointment buttons. Occasionally, doctors will use ZocDoc to go ahead and facilitate the making of that appointment. For attorneys, it's fill out a consultation form on the sidebar or on the long form, or give a call or chat with Engage or other providers of chat. The big thing is to reduce the number of items that you want them to do, because people can be very much like toddlers. If you give them too many choices, they're going to get overwhelmed and be confused, and the last thing you want to do is confuse people online. You want to be very clear what you want them to do, and ask it for as little information as you need. Don't think, well, maybe they'll fill this out if I ask for their phone number and their fax number and their address. Just get what you need to do what you marketing to them, and you'll have a better conversion rate on those.
Yeah, there are a lot of statistics out there that the more you ask people to do, the more information you ask them to hand over, the lower your conversion rate's going to be. So really the point we want to make here is make sure that if somebody lands on this page that you're looking at, what do you want them to do? Do you want them to click to another page for more information? Do you want them to give you a call? So try to step back and be objective and see if you understand the purpose for each page, and have your friends and family help you out or do some user testing.
Exactly. I was going to say, I frequently ask my mom when I'm working on websites, or my kids, it's clear to me, but I've been knee-deep in this. What do you see when you look at this page? And they have a completely different perspective, which is eye-opening. So definitely ask for other people's opinion who are not close to your business, because that's what your visitors are.
Yeah, that's a great point. Don't go ask your spouse or your kids. Well, you already did, Gretchen, but you're having them look at, from a consumer standpoint,
Exactly.
pages, and that's what you want. You don't want somebody that knows you. I mean, don't have, like, if you're a lawyer, having other lawyers look at it is probably not a good idea either, because they're probably making just as many, if not more, mistakes than you. And every lawyer that I talk to thinks that they know everything, so they're going to just put that on you. And what you really want is that you want to get feedback from your clients. You want to get feedback from your patients. Was it helpful? Did it answer your questions? Is it confusing? Did you know what to do? This is another thing, is that if you have too many calls to action, any one of those calls to action might be genius and might be awesome, but if you have too many there, they're not going to know what to do. So try asking them to do like one thing at a time. The goal is to get their name, and the goal is to get the contact information. And then, then you're going to follow up in whichever manner is appropriate to the call to action. But don't try to have 58 different things, make an appointment, get my newsletter, review my coupons, sign up to get my book. You don't need to have all that on a page. Be very clear each page on what you want them to do. Thank you.
All right. Jamie, this must be a special page for you.
My red pen.
So some other things to look for in this is your content now. So we want you to make your English teacher proud, and take a look at what you've written or what you've had somebody write for you, and ask yourself, does the page have a logical flow? Are you just spitting out information and there's no coherence between one paragraph to the next, or does it really walk the person through the information that they need on that page? Are you using proper spacing? You're not doing giant blocks of text. By now you should know that people online don't want to read a giant block of text. You need to break it up and have some great subheadings that will introduce each new concept. And then, of course, professional editing. This is something we see. It's very hard to edit your own work. You can easily miss simple grammar and punctuation mistakes. And on your main landing pages, where most people are going to go on your website, you don't want to have obvious errors like this, because it's going to just make you look unprofessional.
Yeah, it's an immediate knock on your authority and professionalism, but from a more technical standpoint as well, too, Google and the other search engines are going to give a slight algorithmic advantage to the pieces of content that are error-free.
All right, here is an issue that is near and dear to Gretchen's heart: testing your forms on a regular basis. We want to make sure you're doing this. Gretchen, you want to tell us why?
Well, I mean, if you want people to fill out a form and they do, and it doesn't go anywhere, or they don't hear back from you, then they're going to feel frustrated. So definitely test your forms. We recommend quarterly, even better monthly, and if you can swing it weekly, just so you're confirming that they are working, and that if you have a CRM, either whether it's in DSS or if it's with Infusion or another third party, that what happens with the follow-up is what you're expecting. So make sure that the things you want happen, that your thank you pages are working, the forms are working, that it's obvious what's supposed to happen, because you've got a live person on the line. Don't frustrate them.
Right, and after somebody fills out a form, usually the very first thing they see is a thank you page, and this is an often underutilized page where you have the opportunity to thank somebody for filling out the form, and you can also let them know what's going to happen next. But like Gretchen said, you need to make sure that's actually happening. A lot of systems also have an email that gets sent out after somebody fills out a form to immediately contact the person. Sometimes it's a form or a link that allows them to opt into communication, or it's a little more information, and you want to take a look at what it says in there as well. Again, that's another opportunity. You want to make sure, again, that your branding is consistent, that it's a warm and welcoming email, that you can provide additional information to that person, and that you let them know why you sent them the email, because they filled out a form and requested a book, or they asked to be contacted them. Let them know what the email's for and what's going to happen next.
Exactly. And a great idea also on those thank you pages and your email, and they can be the same because some people will not retain the information that you provided, is while you're waiting, for us to contact you, here are some other items on our website that you may find useful. Frequently asked questions. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, wherever you're most active, so that you can get updates on what's happening at our firm very easily. So you definitely just bring them back around.
We also want you to pick up the phone, look at your website, and call the phone number on your website. You want to make sure that the phone number is accurate. You want to make sure that somebody answers the phone in a polite way. So this is a great way to test not only that you have the right phone number on your landing pages and on your website, but that what happens when somebody does call the number. A lot of folks spend a lot of money trying to send people to pay-per-click landing pages or sending them to your home page or certain pages on your site. But if they're so compelled that they're willing to pick up the phone and call you, you want to make sure that there's some good follow-through there. So don't just focus on getting traffic to the site. Focus on making sure that the folks in your office are following through on whatever is going to happen next.
And listen to your calls. Listen to your calls. In DSS, we record. If you've gotten the tracking numbers through us, we have the recordings of those calls. And you need to listen to how people are answering the phones on your behalf. So if you feel that you're getting a lot of traffic, or you feel like you're getting a lot of leads and contacts, but you're not converting a lot of those into cases or clients or patients, who's answering the phone? We've seen it many, many times where that is the problem. So inspect it.
Absolutely. And you also want to test your chat. So if you are using live chat on your website, regardless of the service, try it out, see how it goes, and make sure that when you've chatted with your website, that something happens on the other end. Do you have somebody in your office monitoring the chats, getting that information, then following up with the person? Again, it's just you testing not just your website, but your process, because again, you'll be just wasting money if you're sending people to your site, encouraging them to contact you, and then nothing happens. So this is an audit of basically your whole process. All right, now we're going to give some specific examples of what we like to see on certain types of pages on your. So your home page. So this is the page that's going to welcome all the different types of visitors to your website. And here we have an example from one of our clients who is a podiatrist. So regardless of how many service areas you have or how many different locations you serve, you want to make sure anybody who visits your home page is going to know exactly what you want them to do. So Jamie, from an SEO perspective, what kind of things do you like to see on a home page?
Well, the first thing that needs to be remembered or addressed on the home page is that it's almost always going to be the most popular page on your site for, pretty self-explanatory reasons. If you're in analytics and looking at your top landing pages, whether it be organically or from any potential traffic source, the home page is almost without exception going to be the most popular avenue of entry for a website. So to that end, you need to make sure that you're hitting them immediately with the proper messaging, going all the way back to step one in the 10 marketing commandments, making sure that you have identified a goal for your website and for your marketing as a whole, but also that you're then providing people with the messaging consistent with accomplishing that goal. There are technical SEO elements to the homepage, making sure that you have a very well-defined header or headline on the page telling visitors exactly what it is you do and where you do it, making sure that the content is well written but also well optimized. But the most important aspect of it all is going to be that you have consistent messaging and consistent branding on the homepage that matches everything else that you're presenting people with, whether it be offline marketing, whether it be other popular pages on your site. It all sort of gravitates around the home page as the sort of nexus of your online presence, and that's where the messaging needs to be most clear and definitely consistent.
And Gretchen, are there other design elements that you like to see on a business's homepage?
Absolutely. Excuse me. Absolutely. Frequently, clients want to be different and make their page stand out to visitors, but there's definitely some things that you need to keep in mind that are standards, as we had talked about previously, so that you don't confuse people. So having your logo in the upper left-hand corner that links back to your homepage is always important, and having that logo on every single page. So if a client does go to an internal page, they aren't lost. So the logo in the upper left, a phone number in the header so that they can call you. Some people would rather have the form, some people would like to call. So although we talked about limiting your choices, those are two items that you want to make sure you do have. Social icons, if you're active on them, definitely include them. If you're not active, don't include them in hopes that you're going to motivate yourself. Only put the ones on there. Otherwise, people look at it and think, oh, look, they haven't updated Twitter since 2012. That leaves, again, a sour taste in people's mouth. Pictures.
And those are great icons to actually click and make sure that the links work. I have been to websites where, especially if you've purchased a template or something like that to create your website, and the icons are there but you've never actually set up the links, is go and click each one and make sure that the page that opens goes to your business's social media page and that there's actually a link there. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that done incorrectly or that just there's no link there at all. And I think, Jamie, this is one of the things you brought up earlier that you see when you're auditing websites is incorrect links or pages, like Gretchen said, that have just never been updated.
Yeah, exactly. Make sure that the links are going where you'd like them to. They're going to the correct place. But these off-site places, social media in particular, is another great opportunity to provide consistency in your branding. Think about, it's very easy to set up a Facebook page and then link to it from your homepage. But think about the presentation that a visitor gets if they come from Google to your homepage and then click the Facebook link to go to your Facebook page. Are they receiving consistent messaging? Are they receiving consistent branding? It's not going to necessarily make or break the sales process or the client intake process, but you reinforce the idea of consistency in their minds. And while there may not be, like I said, it's not going to necessarily make or break a client's decision, you can augment your opportunities for converting people with this consistency.
And another item to consider is adding images. We're looking at Craig Tomajan's site here, and as a podiatrist, he's got a lot of images about feet, and it confirms to people that they're in the right place. It also breaks up the content a little bit to give them something other than words to look at. You also want to make sure that what your homepage looks like on a desktop versus on a tablet versus what it looks like on your mobile site. Frequently, you'll update a page, your home page, look at it on your desktop and think you're done. Be sure to look at the other two items as well because you're not sure how that is rendering. If you've uploaded a really large image, it may, on your phone, make it look a little wonky. So be sure to look at all those different.
Great point, Gretchen.
Talk a little bit. Yeah, let's talk real quick about images, about some of the things that we've been wanting to warn people about. I think that we have in a variety of ways, but Gretchen, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about images and what's going on about how you better buy your own images and stop taking them from other places.
That's basically it in a nutshell. We recommend that you subscribe to a service, or you don't have to subscribe. You can just buy images one-off. Use Shutterstock, iStock, BigStock. Don't go to Google Images and think, hey, that image is there. I'll just use that on my website. We have had several clients be contacted by Getty and by other services that say, you don't have the rights to use this image. We have no record of you purchasing the rights to this image. And then there are demand letters submitted to them that you need to stop using the image and pay the penalty for using this erroneously. There's a service called TinEye, TINEYE.com, that will give you the history of an image. So if you can either put it, send a link on your website or upload the actual image that you're interested in using if it's unclear whether you have rights. However, most image sites are very clear that you are not allowed to use the images for commercial purposes, which is what your websites are, only for personal or if you get the rights. I've had a client who who wanted to use an image from a Flickr site. There's a lot of professional photography groups on Flickr, and we reached out to the photographer and said, hey, we love your image, do you mind if we use it? And he was thrilled beyond belief that his work was going to be used in a professional setting. We gave him credit, and I was amazed at how excited he was, which, in hindsight, I shouldn't have been. He was very willing to let us use it. So be sure, always walk on the right side.
Yeah, and that's another thing too, for auditing your site, especially if you've had different agencies or different people working on the website over the years. This could have been an image that was added to your site back in 1998. I mean, seriously, these guys are coming after you. We've been approached because of all the websites that we handle for a client. I mean, it happens pretty frequently, and we just send them on to the client. But, Getty Images in particular will come after you. I mean, and they will sue you for thousands of dollars. So make sure that you are not putting images on your site that do not belong to you. And Gretchen's right. I mean, go to Shutterstock and at least get the rights and be able to prove it. This is, the internet business. You just got to protect yourself like everywhere else, and stuff that just know that this is constantly changing, and stuff that no problem 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 months ago may or may not be allowed 6 months from now. And that's what our job is, to kind of keep everybody informed on the changes. And so this is another thing to look out for. Okay? Thank you for that.
Yes. And another thing just to keep in mind, which was entertaining, I feel, is we had a client down in Florida who's a very attractive man, and his picture, his bio image, was actually snagged off of his website and used on another attorney's website who's not a client of ours. But even your images, go ahead and make sure that you're the only one using them for that same reason. You don't want to be representing, other people at another firm with your image. So, the reverse is true as well. Make sure that you're the only one who are using your personal images as well.
A couple other things for the homepage. Definitely. A couple other things for the homepage. If you have a hot case that's trending in the media, let's say you get lucky and you get a lot of media attention for a case that you're handling, that's a good time to take a look at your homepage and say, hey, one of these buttons I have here, or somewhere prominently on the sidebar, maybe in the header, should I add an image or a button to quickly direct the people who are curious about my firm to a page about that particular case? So that's a good time to take a look at your homepage and see what design elements you can adjust to take advantage of all this attention that you're getting. And we've been able to do this for clients, right?
Yeah, and that works. And one final point about the homepage. The homepage is only one page of all of your pages. And we're going to talk about some other important pages in a minute. But you have to look at your homepage kind of like the foyer, the front door, the first hallway of your house, or the reception area of your office. It is not where everything exists, but everyone tries to move all the furniture in the whole house into the foyer. And, when you invite someone into your home, you're going to take them into another room. When you invite someone into your office, you're going to bring them to the room that they need to be in. And that's how you have to look at your homepage. And that is why it is not designed to answer all the questions, but to lead them into where they need to have their question answered, especially if you're doing a lot of different practice areas or service areas. In this example here with Craig's page, you can see that it is broadly broken up with his main practice areas or his main service areas right there. But there's other specialties you can drop down. The whole point is to get them to move on to what they're interested in. So for a lawyer that does multiple practice areas, there's no way that you can talk about everything on page one. But most people, most lawyers, they only look at their home page. But you have to understand that you have more than one piece of bait. And so bait for search engines, and then also once that comes in, is that page converting them? Now the home page, you can't have every offer on the home page. You can't have every call to action on the home page, because that goes against what we were just talking about before about confusing them. So the home page is designed to be basically now where you want to go. Can I get you the information that you want immediately, which is call me now if you have questions or ready to chat, or what do you want to know more about, and get them going on down the road. Once they click on sports injury or surgery, or they click on, auto accidents or DWI, then you hit them with that offer. Then you hit them with that call to action for that specific thing. And I know that's coming up a little bit more, but I just want to be very clear about what the purpose of the home page is. Okay, Dee, and the next one is what, our About Us page, the other one?
Right.
Very
So these are
important.
just a few more,
Right.
yeah, a few more key pages. And I selected this example because it's this firm has taken the approach where they wrote a message from one of the main attorneys who is very well known in this area. So he wrote it as like a letter about the forming of the firm. So this is the kind of page where, again, you can have videos, images, you want to tell people about the firm. Typically, once people have found you through organic search and they're interested in learning more about you, they check out a page like this, or they'll look at your bio pages. So think about how you want to present yourself. What's your message? And what's going to be important to people? And Jamie, as an SEO, what do you like to see on these types of pages?
Well, the About Us page should, as you were saying, be sort of, it's a bio page for the firm as a whole, right? Make it about your whole firm. But the unique thing about these About Us pages is that they're a great and often underutilized opportunity for some keyword targeting that isn't available to you everywhere else. If you, say for instance, are, if we're using the Hupy and Abraham as an example that we have up here on the page, you can't any longer at least squeeze Milwaukee, Wisconsin personal injury attorneys into every piece of content you write on your site. It looks stuffed, it looks unnatural, it will result in your site not ranking very well for that keyword or for any other keyword, especially if Google deems your keyword stuffing worthy of a penalty. However, there are some pages that are very relevant to that keyword phrase on your site. The About Us page, and I think we'll get into it a little more later, the Contact Us page, are great opportunities to go after those sort of highly competitive, high volume, more generic keyword phrases, the sort of vanity keywords that Tom talks about a lot, personal injury attorney, car accident attorney, those sorts of things that are very difficult to work naturally into a lot of content but fit very well into a more generic About Us or About the Firm page.
Absolutely. Which naturally brings us to the bio pages. So very similar to talking about your firm, you want to talk about the individuals in the firm. And bio pages are individual pages about either the attorneys, the doctors, the staff members, and we definitely recommend any client-facing folks that you have in your office. If they meet with a client or talk to a client, you should include information about them on your website, because once your folks start working with them, or if they talk to them on the phone, they may want to look them up and just get to know better who they're working with. And this is a great chance for you to humanize that person and show who they really are, both their professional accomplishments, which will impress your clients, and also some personal items, which again will make them appear human. So Jamie, again, from an SEO's perspective, what do you like to see on these bio pages?
Well, it's not just a resume. Like you said, you've got to humanize it. You've got to sell yourself as a person. The bio pages are an excellent opportunity to demonstrate that you're more than just a suit and tie or more than just a stethoscope and a lab coat. Whatever the case may be, you're a human being beyond just your business interactions, and you can really create empathy with potential clients by emphasizing that. Pictures of you and your family, or golfing, fishing, whatever it is you like doing, establish that you're more than just what your business is. But from a technical SEO standpoint, very similar to the About Us pages, the bio pages are great opportunities for some of those more highly competitive keywords. title tag of a bio page could very easily read, Fairfax, Virginia, personal injury attorney, so-and-so, where that would not fit in naturally at all on most other content, blogs or library articles that you're producing on a monthly basis. It does fit in very well on a bio page and is very relevant to the information presented on the page and the information that may be searched upon by potential visitors.
And I mean, bio pages, they should really talk about who you are as a person. Maybe like listing all the accreditations and certificates and classes, CLEs, and whatever else you can imagine is important to other lawyers. Unless you are marketing to lawyers, that is not what is important to consumers. They don't know what any of that means. And sure, it's good to have a list of those, I think, but don't lead with that. We see a lot of lawyer bio pages that it's just a giant list of all their accolades and awards. Tell us a little bit about yourself. People like to work with the people that they like or people that they have some kind of commonality with, some kind of common bond. If you're a black belt in karate, you should talk about that you're a black belt in karate and, put a picture of you up there. Guaranteed you'll get somebody that is another karate person will hire you because of that. Lord knows that I get a lot of attention because I have a band with my kids, and people think that's cool. And they always ask me about it. I can tell you that at every interview that I have had of employees or whatever, everyone always brings up our bios and our videos because it's that powerful. They love them. And people want to see that stuff. Don't hide it from them. You're going to talk about it anyway when you're talking to clients about common interests as you're getting to know each other better. So if you're an avid golfer, talk about it with pictures. If if you coach your kids' basketball team, put it up there. Stuff that you've done in your past. Maybe you are an actor at another stage in your life, or maybe you love horses and you love to work with horses. Put that out there. It is who you are, and people that will appreciate that, you being more open about it than just talking about, a lawyer that says, I do this because I care about people. Everybody says that stuff. That's great, and I'm sure that you do, but talk about, really the real you, and it works. And then all that other SEO stuff that Jamie was talking about.
There's two other things you can consider adding. If you write case stories, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, if you have any really good stories about some of the cases you've handled or different types of patients you worked with, or something, the typical type of cases or business that you take, if you have some great stories written up, feel free to link to those in there just to give people a little more in-depth information about how you work and what you're like to work with. That's another way to give people a snapshot into what it would be like working with you. Or if you have testimonials specifically about you, let's say someone gives you a great video testimonial or a written testimonial that specifically mentions you by name and what it was like to work with you, that's another way to let somebody else's voice speak for what it's like to work with you. All right, we are getting short on time, but we do have some other examples to go through. Practice areas and service areas. So this is on your website where you list the types of cases that you handle. If you're an attorney or if you're a doctor, it's the type of procedures that you do or the services that you offer, or as a business, it's anything that you offer to the public. So there's a lot of things that you want to look at. And Jamie, I know that practice areas or service areas are very important from an SEO perspective, so why don't you tell us what you like to see on these kinds of pages?
Yeah, the main practice area pages on your site are almost always going to be the most authoritative, strongest, most highly ranking page on your site for that particular topic, whatever it may be. So if you have a, for instance, car accidents practice area page, that page is going to have more authority within the eyes of Google and the other search engines than almost any other piece of content you have about car accidents. So as a result, it's going to show up more often, it's going to show up more frequently, it's going to be viewed more frequently. The more eyeballs you have on that page, the more important it is to make sure that you're providing consistent branding information like we've talked about, but that you're also taking the opportunity to really be as focused as possible about that particular topic. The practice area page is a perfect opportunity to give more of a general overview of that practice area as a whole, how you practice it, how you approach those particular cases. There are plenty of other opportunities for the specifics about particular dangers of, causes of car accidents, what types of, intersections are most likely to cause accidents, common injuries sustained in car accidents. All of those fit much better into the one-off pieces that can be published in your blog or in your library as FAQs, etc. But the practice area needs to be the sort of top-level overview of that particular area of the law and how you approach it. Very similar to the bio and About Us pages, like Danielle mentioned, the practice area pages are also going to be the best opportunity for you to target, and probably the only real opportunity for you to target heavily those more generic, highly competitive, high-volume keywords like car accident attorney, car accident lawyer, that sort of thing.
Right. And another thing we want you to do is not just look at those individual pages, but step back and take a look at all of the practice areas that you're advertising on your website. Take a look at all the services that you're offering and ask yourself, are you confusing people by having too many things listed? Often we'll see attorneys who will put a laundry list of different types of injuries in addition to different types of accidents. And it can be, if you're an individual who's suffered, let's say someone in your family has died in a car accident involving a truck, which link do they click on? Is it wrongful death? Is it car accident? Is it truck accident? It can be very overwhelming. So take a look at everything you have up there and ask, is it clear to somebody visiting which link they should click? And ask yourself if you're actually doing the marketing necessary to support all of those practice areas. And this goes back to that #1 point in our 10 Commandments, is having a strategy and having goals, because you want to make sure that you have a strategy for each practice area and goals for each practice area, and that you're investing in marketing for each practice area. If you're not doing that, then maybe you need to trim down the list and focus more heavily on your core competency. All right, case stories. So this is one of our favorite types of content. If you're writing about the best cases that you've handled or your best clients, your best patients, tell a story about how you helped them, why they came to you, what you were able to do, what the results were, how they felt throughout the process, how you felt. Turn it into a story. Very often we'll see attorneys or doctors just put up very basic, either monetary results or very basic description of what they've done. That's not terribly compelling. We want you to turn these cases, if you want to attract more like them, turn them into the great stories. And we've included a link here. We go into more detail on our website about how to do this, along with some examples. And we're going to send this presentation out afterwards, so I encourage you to take a look at that link and start doing case stories or patient stories as part of your regular content.
This works, and this goes to what we were saying early on about what kind of content. You can only write so many library articles or blog posts about helmet laws and motorcycles and stuff like that. But if every case is unique, every client, the situation in which they found you, the accident that they were in, the strategy that you used in the case in order to get them the best settlement or the best result. That's what we're talking about. And just like Dee said, it's not about always the monetary result. As a matter of fact, in many cases, a lot of those things are confidential and you can't talk about them anyway. That does not mean that you cannot talk about the case at all. You just can't use names and numbers, but you can still talk about the facts of the case. Sometimes, in fact, that works in your benefit because it might have been a great case, and you might have, all the circumstances were awesome, but you did not get the result that you had wanted to, or that would be impressive. But you would love other cases like that. So that's really the whole thing, is tell the story of the case, obviously keeping in mind what you're allowed to talk about through the confidentiality agreement. But this works. This works. This is a tested and proven way to produce good content that gets results.
And the reason we mention it here is because very often doctors or lawyers will have a link to previous patients or case studies and things like that from the main navigation bar. And we often see in Google Analytics that when people are combing through your site looking for more information, they'll read these things. And you want to make sure, are you presenting your best cases? So go ahead and look at the overview page for your case studies. and see what it looks like. You know, are you presenting your best cases up front so people are clicking those links first? Remember, this is an audit. You want to ask yourself, I've got great cases I've handled, I've had great patients, am I presenting the best ones first and foremost to be found by people who visit my website? We also have testimonials, very similar. This is when folks in their own voice will give you either written or video testimonials saying what it was like working with you, and you want to make sure you're making the most of this. And Jamie, what are some recommendations that you give clients for collecting testimonials?
You know, just be personable, be personal as well too. If you have the ability to record video testimonials, and you know certainly not everybody will, but they're very persuasive. There's really no substitute for seeing people tell their own stories in their own words and being able to see their facial expressions and their body language as they do so. You know, short of that, getting personally written testimonials from happy clients and patients is going to be the next best thing. You know, you can recount something very well but still not capture quite the same essence that the individual themselves is going to capture. From an SEO perspective, the testimonials are less important than some of these other areas, but they're a very important aspect of the overall marketing plan. You know, testimonials are going to be very persuasive, both on your site as well as any reviews or testimonials that you accumulate on third-party sites as well. It is absolutely a part of a prospective client or patient's decision-making process. They're absolutely going to see what others have to say about you. So any control you're able to exert over that process is going to be beneficial.
Right, and again, because this is an audit of your website, often you'll have a link to the testimonials on your main navigation or somewhere else very prominent. Again, take a look at that page and make sure, how does it look? Are you presenting your best testimonials? Should you be collecting some more recent ones if you've included the dates and you haven't had one in 3 years? These are questions to ask yourself during your audit. The contact page, most of you will have a link on your main navigation somewhere on your website that helps people contact you. And Jamie, you were telling me earlier that you think this is one of the least understood or most underutilized pages on a website. Why is that?
Underutilized, absolutely. It's a very authoritative page for most everybody that we work with. It's, as I mentioned earlier, almost always one of the top 5 landing pages, both organically as well as from other traffic sources. And it's because it's very closely tied to your firm name, to your firm's address, to your firm's phone number. If any of those things are searched upon by a user, they're going to be served up the contact page more frequently than they will anything else. We've also, as a best practice ourselves, started linking clients' Google Plus pages to office location pages and contact pages rather than home pages as a way to further strengthen that emphasis between firm name and address and location. All of those things are going to, when aligned properly, have a noticeable effect on your site's local visibility within Google's local search results. But it's also an opportunity to really drive home your messaging once again. It's not just a form, but you've got them almost there. They've got one foot in the door. What can you do from a branding and messaging perspective to give them that sort of gentle nudge to complete that form? You know, I see too often very bare or completely empty contact pages with nothing but a form and some generic sentence that says contact us today for a free case analysis. You've got a great opportunity on your hands with the contact page. Don't let it slip you by.
Awesome. And then another very important page, of course, we mentioned this earlier, your report or your offer pages. If you have some information that you're hoping people will give you their name and email so that they can download the information, or if you want to send them something in the mail, you're going to have a landing page. And what I've done here is I've included a link. We did a whole webinar on offers and landing pages that convert, because there's a lot of research and a lot of tips and tricks that go into making an awesome landing page. Everything from your title to how many fields to have on your form to the color of buttons. And as Gretchen knows, there's a huge amount of things that you can do. We don't have time to go through them right now, but I definitely encourage you, if you want to make your landing pages awesome, check out our other webinar all about landing pages, and make sure you're testing and trying this out each quarter, every 6 months. Try to tweak your landing page and see if you can get better results. And our last slide here, we've got the if you get media attention, and we mentioned this earlier, we've had some clients who have gotten media attention, most notably BB Attorneys, for the truth about the Captain Phillips movie. And when this broke and they were getting a lot of attention for the movie, we updated their homepage to include a clear button that the press or interested members of the public could click to get more information about why they were disputing some of the events that took place in the movie. And we also linked to a press kit. So if you find yourself in a similar situation, make sure you take advantage of that attention and, like we said, make it easy for people to find information on the site and provide the press or other interested individuals a variety of other places to go on your website to learn about you. All right, so we had a couple questions. Tom, do you want to?
Well, I think that Connie addressed Jerry's question about where to find the recorded calls in DSS. You just go in Contacts and click on the call itself, and you can see the recorded message there. That was one. Then we had another one from Rachel at Kirby's office that was about if you changed, if you're looking at your top landing pages and you change them, are you going to lose ranking? And Jamie, how should we respond to that? I mean, like sometimes you don't want certain pages to rank, and really it's what pages are not ranking there that you want to rank, and how do you find those pages of your site? So why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, there's a very real if it ain't broke, don't fix it type mentality to some of these pages, right? If they're ranking well, and assuming they are the pages that you want to be ranking for, I can understand the hesitancy to make any changes. That being said, though, the audit doesn't necessarily mean that changes have to be made. If you look at your organic landing pages and you're absolutely happy with which ones they are, and you look at the pages themselves, everything looks great from a narrative structure standpoint, from a spelling and grammar standpoint, your branding and messaging is on point as well. Don't make any changes just for the sake of making changes. If everything looks good, then don't rock the boat necessarily. If, however, you feel like you could be getting more out of those pages, then like we said, the top organic landing pages are a great place to start, because those are the pages people are finding whether you want them to or not, and then whether you do want them to or not will dictate whether or not you want to make any adjustments to change that.
That's it.
All right. Lastly, we just have some resources for all of you. I know we ran over today, but thank you for staying with us. This is a really important topic, and I think it's, like I said before, it's not something that folks do enough, sit down and take a look at their website and really do a good audit. And if you do want more information, you can see all of our pre-recorded webinars at fwm.tips. And if the idea of auditing your website is a little daunting for you, we do offer complimentary website analyses. All you need to do is go to fwmanalysis.com. There's a lot of questions there, but that will help us do a great in-depth analysis for you of your website, and that's done actually by our SEO team. This is not automated. And then you'll be able to sit down with one of our folks and go through the results and talk about some of our recommendations. So we definitely recommend you do that if you haven't yet. And I also want to mention that our next webinar is on St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, 2015, and we'll be going through Step 3 of Thou Shalt Optimize Your Local Search and Niche Directories. So these are all the other places online that your website may be mentioned, and this is going to be really important. As I said earlier, our team just attended a conference all about local search. They've got the latest and greatest information for you. That's all I have for today. Tom?
That's it. I think that was great. Thank you very much, Danielle, Gretchen, Jamie, for participating. And we will see you guys next month.
Sounds
Everybody
great.
try and stay warm.
Thanks, everybody.
Those of you that are up here in the gold. Take care.